So in a parish now, I'm looking forward to really being a part of the whole life cycle, from, baptizing the children and seeing children go through, first confession, first communion, confirmation, seeing them go through all of that, and then, weddings and having children, the whole life cycle, to be present to that, because priesthood is a really very privileged spot. Very often people will say, oh, well, you priests don't have, a spouse or children. Are you lonely? And it's not lonely in the way people think, because we have this privileged spot to be in these really intense moments in people's lives. Moments of, great joy, with their children or marriage, times of sadness when their parents are ill, people pass away. To be there in those moments of a person's life is a very special thing. And so I'm really looking forward to being a part of that whole community again. I'm certainly looking forward to working with the youth group and young adults or college-age students. Really what I have tried to do with them on kind of a wide level is to provide them the space to be able to ask questions about their faith, to learn about it, in a sense, on their own terms and at their own pace. Every person has a unique background and experience in faith as a young person. Every family is a little bit different. And so that in order for a young person to come to an adult faith, a faith that is truly their own, a faith where they have begun a relationship with who Jesus is, you need to be able to ask questions. And you need to be able to ask questions that you might think, oh, well, you're not allowed to ask that question. That's bad. That's wrong. No, those are good questions. To allow them to have that space, to grow at the rate that God calls them to grow. And to have the space to do that and not feel judged, not feel belittled. But also, to make sure, and I think there already is, but to make sure that there's, a group of, for high school students, for college students, young adults, where they just have a community of people who are on the same journey, asking similar questions, wondering, how do I be a young Catholic in the 21st century? Most of them want to be faithful, certainly, but they also see where society is, and they don't want to be seen as backwards or certainly not prejudicial or anything. How do you make that place in society and yet be faithful to the church? And you need people to be with you. I think that's a huge need for our students today, for young people. All the social media and communication, they're great for what they are, but they can very often leave us feeling kind of lonely and out there by ourselves. And so just being with other people their age on the same journey is so very, very important. If I had to pick one favorite form of prayer, I really do enjoy the Mass. I was an altar boy at St. Gabriel. For people who remember Father Coverman back in the 80s, I remember just kind of being with him on the altar and just kind of in awe. It was one of the very first, views of a priest that I ever had, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So probably that was a first seed of vocation. But I enjoyed being on the altar and being close. I could hear what was going on, hear the prayers. I could hear the silent prayers of the priest. A lot of people, what is Father saying there? I could hear that. So that was really made an impression on me, certainly. But just the whole Mass, I think people coming together, all of us coming together from different places, all of us in our homes. Someone made a point years and years ago about how really the entrance rite begins in our homes. All of us getting ready in the morning, parents getting their kids ready, people getting dressed, getting in the car, coming to church. That's the entrance rite. That's the beginnings of it. And then as we gather in the church itself, and then the actual formal entrance rite happens, it's symbolic. it's not just Father getting from point A to point B. It's symbolic of all of us coming and bringing all of our life experience to the altar. That to me, maybe it was when St. John's was building in its new church, we took time to learn about the Mass in particular, and talked about how we were organizing our parking lot, and it was done with the idea there's a central sidewalk through the parking lot at St. John's. It was done because of that symbolism, meant to bring that out, that all of us come, together. And so that made an impression on me. Listening to Scripture together as a community, I think it has so much resonance. And then, of course, the Eucharistic prayer, Christ is present in the Word, when the Word is spoken from Scriptures, but Christ certainly, sacramentally present there on the altar as we remember what he did at the Last Supper. And then we share that. We're fed. God literally feeds us, to answer that hunger that lives in all of us, for the divine, to know Christ. And then we're sent out. The old Latin, ita missa est, go you are sent. Literally it's the Mass is ended, but it really means, missa means to be sent out into the world. Take what you've received here and take Christ out into the world where he's so desperately needed, and that's what we are all called to do. So that there's so much meaning there. So I just, and then for a parish priest, that's where we see our people. The vast majority of our people, we see them Saturday evening, Sunday morning, so what a privileged time that is on a ministerial level. So there's a lot to love there. So the whole Mass is my favorite part. Campus ministry was very good to me in this sense, in that I'm very much a night person. The hours between about 11 a.m. and 10 p.m., those are good for me. So morning hours, but not my cup of tea. Although, in the same vein, we would do retreats yearly, and we would often go to a retreat center up in the northern part of the Archdiocese called Mariastein. And it's out in the middle of, that farmland. I would try to always get a room that faces east, so that in the morning, when the sun comes up, you can see the sunrise. And when I have to be up that early, it's a wonderful time to pray. There's just a great beauty, which the cynical part of me says there's also great beauty at sunset, which is a better time of day for me. But at sunrise, just that new beginning and that brightness, there's just a beauty to that. So, I try to learn to love, what I have to do. So I belong to St. Meinrad Archabbey down in southern Indiana. And there's such an emphasis in monastic prayer of the vigil office, which usually takes place during the night. And part of the reason that happens is because, especially around 4, 5, 6 a.m., right before the sun comes up, is probably when the night is the quietest. And so Benedict and the early monastics saw that as a privileged time to be able to pray and to have a contemplative, experience of God. And so, yes, very much an evening, night person. But I like that early morning, experience of God and the stillness of the earth and all the ways that just our natural world can point us toward the Creator. Yeah, when you're getting a new priest, you're a little worried. This is your parish, this is your spiritual home, and he has a lot to say about how things are run and what the tone and tenor of the place will be for the next however many years. So, I remember in places where I've been and there was a new priest coming, you're like, especially when you have a priest that you like, and who fits well with that. And I know my community at Wright State, they're like, wait, you can't leave campus ministry, what are we going to do? And part of the reason I felt like this was a good time to go was that there was another priest who was available who I thought would make a good campus minister and would be, because that takes a specific skill set and a specific, attitude and personality. And this guy is I think going to do very well, and they'll very quickly forget about me and go, who was that other guy? They're going to really like